Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Unexplained with your hosts, Logan, the Time Traveler, and Mark, the Wren. Pretty soon we will be joined by Mark the Wren, so you can guess who this is. This is Logan, and I am from the future. I've come here to do this podcast in the corner of Blog Talk Radio to tell you what's going on. Now, somebody spilled the beans recently on some pretty heavy stuff, on a wrestling program no less. His name was Larry, the living legend, Zbyszko. People might know him with it because of his AWA title run or his feud with the great Bruno Sammartino. But this guy is not only a wrestler, he seems to have his finger on the pulse of some really interesting theories about the cosmos, the world, and the different positions, where we are in the world and what we're to expect. Now, to an unsuspecting person, or to somebody who's not versed in these things, a lot of the claims that he made were, I think, received with a certain bit of scoffing and like, okay, what do you know, Larry Zbyszko, you wrestler, you. But, you know, wisdom comes from strange places, so we shouldn't sit there and just mock it just because of the source. So the first thing that Larry touches on with Mr. Bryan Alvarez in the interview is the issue of death, because somebody reported that he died. So we can start off with the idea that there is no death, that we are just light beings, and that we can go into some other dimension and then come back out. But before I do that, I want to introduce my co-host, the king of the radio board section, soon to be the king of the board, Mark Wren. What's up, man?
Hey, man. How's it going?
Good, man. It's good to hear you on the line, and we are...
Good to be back on the show after a while.
Yes, we've had quite a hiatus there. Well, what happened was, and, you know, I don't mind talking about it because fuck these guys. We started doing that alien show, and, you know, both of us got paid some visits by the Men in Black and told us to stop. So... You know,
it did worry us for a little while. I was getting these calls and like people were hanging up, and I was talking to people on the line, and you could hear clicks on the phone. So I was like, "What the fuck's going on?"
Yeah, and then a couple people on the board complained that they were getting anally probed after they listened to this thing, and so you know we were just trying to protect everybody's anus.
Well, but that actually may be part of their regular everyday life.
That's what I think. I think they're trying to blame it on us, but they're just. Homos that like to get drilled in the ass. So, But that's nothing wrong with that. You know, if that's your deal, go for it. Neville, we're talking about you. But before we get into Larry Zbyszko, I'm sure you heard the interview. What was your overall impression of Larry Zbyszko's talk to Bryan Alvarez? Did you agree with him, or did you think he was just a nut?
Well, it made for interesting listening, certainly. I mean, you know, when Bryan or someone interviews someone that's a wrestler, you don't expect them to start talking about the afterlife and conspiracies and politics and that sort of stuff. You expect them just to talk about, you know, their memories. If they're a retired wrestler, you expect them to talk about their memories of the business or the views of the current product. All of a sudden, Zbyszko, obviously, he'd been thinking about some stuff and wanted to get some stuff off his chest and air some of his views, and it made for interesting listening. And there's been a lot of debate on the board about it, and it's good to talk about, you know, other stuff.
Yeah, and I wanted to give a big shout out to Saradik, who suggested that we take this this topic, I think. And this is a lot better than what we were going to discuss was zombies. So let's get into some of the claims that Mr. Larry Zbyszko made. He did talk about us being in the zone, as it were, and he talked about the zone as a photon belt that he says emanates from the center of our galaxy, which takes its orders from the center of the universe. And basically, he's saying that every 26,000 years, the Earth enters this belt, and big shifts happen on the Earth, and big changes. And in some lore, it's bad stuff, and some other lore, it's good stuff. It seemed that Larry was kind of mixing the two and saying that it's going to be bad at first and then get good again. But I looked it up on Wikipedia, and it seems like there's no scientific evidence of such a photon belt. But what do you think about that idea? We're going to link it to Kennedy in a second because Kennedy seemed to believe in it as well. But do you have any credence to this? Do you think that this 2012 thing might be part of that, or what do you think's going on?
To be honest, that part of the Zbyszko interview kind of really lost me because I was thinking like, what the hell is he smoking? I just got first of all, I thought he was kind of talking about like the view of like we're all living inside like a matrix, as in like the movies. We're all like being controlled and stuff. And then he started kind of talking about the Earth. Mother Nature kind of regenerating herself, and every so often there's these periods where, like the Earth kind of does like a reset or something. And I don't know, it's just he kind of lost me. He kind of lost me there, and I've not really given it too much thought. But I don't know where all this.
Well, let me inform you about this stuff because it's interesting. I went to Wikipedia just to see what people say about it, and it's a New Age belief that's out there that this. Here, I'll just read the passage here. What it says is, it's a pseudo-scientific belief largely linked to some parts of the New Age movement. It postulates that a belt or ring of photons is going to envelop the Earth, causing a cataclysm and or initiating a spiritual transition. Referred to variously as a shift in consciousness, the great shift, the shift of the ages, the 0 point, the ascension point. But anyway, he said that time will start getting faster, that the sun is getting hotter, and that's what's causing all this global warming. He was just throwing shit out there. And the big thing that he threw out there was the conspiracy behind the JFK assassination, saying that he was basically killed because he was going to join up with Khrushchev, the Russian premier, and then go and expose perhaps what they had found on the moon, which he believes is now that has some credence to it, that because we have not gone to the moon in the last 40 years for a reason, and there might be because we found some structures on there. Have you heard that?
Well, talking about the Kennedy thing, I think Zbyszko was kind of getting his like timelines wrong, because obviously Kennedy was killed in '63 and we didn't go to the moon till '69. So I don't know why he's saying obviously that's a 6-year difference that just doesn't, the sums don't add up.
Well, to be fair, he said that the satellites picked up the images of things on the moon, so it could be just
like
through
the early kind of satellites like Sputnik and
the probes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't of all the theories that I've heard about the Kennedy assassination, I've never heard that one. I've heard people say Kennedy was going to like expose like aliens and stuff. I've heard that one, that he was going to reveal aliens, so they killed him to keep his mouth shut. But I've not heard the stuff about Kennedy and Nikita Khrushchev, kind of getting their heads together and like doing some kind of big moon revelation type thing. I've not heard that at all, so I don't know what he was on about there. I think Larry was also mentioning about like kind of like the Illuminati and stuff, which is another thing, another theory about it. The real kind of power brokers in the world decided that Kennedy was kind of not good for business, so they decided to kind of rub him out. So that's another theory that's it's got some supporters, certainly very very powerful people. I believe eliminated Kennedy, and not just and certainly not the government line. If it was Lee Harvey Oswald, it was a group of powerful people, whether it was the CIA or the FBI, somewhere along the lines. But I don't think it was totally like Illuminati, but obviously there are people that are in the CIA and FBI that are actually part of that Illuminati. So it kind of links to that.
Well, yeah. There was some investigations. Apparently, my understanding is that Kennedy made certain references to secret societies and kind of started to hint that maybe it wasn't such a good idea to allow ourselves to be ruled by them. And I mean, he started making weird cryptic comments, and all of a sudden he's gone.
You can watch some of Kennedy's speeches on YouTube where he's talking about we live in a society where there's these hidden forces and stuff. So I don't know whether he's kind of double speak and just kind of hinting at stuff that wasn't really going to totally come out and say, but like if people in the know would get his drift, what he was talking about. So there could be something to that, but he certainly knew what the score was.
Yeah, and he also talked about there was like the idea that these structures that we see, like the pyramids and Stonehenge and the statues on Easter Island, they all seem to be impossible feats of construction, and that that they actually were structures that were meant to harness some kind of magnetic field, and they are like on a higher level of science than we even have today, because like we're burning like fossil fuels to get energy, and apparently there's a way to harness the natural energy of the universe that our ancestors knew, and that's what the pyramids were, like kind of a power plant for that. I just thought it was interesting that he was talking about that, like how he just made the remark that people think that a guy, like a caveman in a woolly mammoth, could drag like a 400-ton stone up like 400 miles or something, So, there is some interesting facts about that just don't add up together when you think about the pyramids and the Sphinx.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, if people are aware of the TV series Ancient Aliens, they cover all this stuff about how can the pyramids be built and all these massive stone structures that weigh a huge amount of tons, and they can't even recreate it. Modern day cranes wouldn't even be able to lift these big slabs of stone, let alone 10,000 years ago or however long it was. There's that theory to it, and whether aliens or whatever had a help in making these structures or made them themselves is another thing. You certainly can't imagine. It's hard to imagine a bunch of well, not quite cavemen, but primitive men with just woods and rollers and rope and things, just hauling these massive things. I mean, look at the pyramids. I mean, how are you? It blows my mind to even think that even I don't know. It just blows your mind to think about even making them. I mean, they're putting blocks on blocks on blocks, and it's just, I don't know. I know a few people that have actually been.
Yeah, and the blocks were so like well cut that they didn't even need cement.
Exactly. I know a few people that have been there, and they're like, this shit's just amazing. Like, you stand in front of these pyramids, and they're just, you can't believe that like someone made them all these thousands of years ago. It blows your mind. One day I'd like to check it out.
Yeah, and he mentioned too that the story of when they were made is probably incorrect. And I think Bryan talked about this, that they've done some studies on the erosion, and it looks like that they were made actually a lot longer ago.
Yeah, that's right. I heard that as well. Yeah.
So that's interesting.
There's another good podcast that people might want to check out, and it's from a sort of a surprising source. There's a guy, Joe, comedian, and he's done Fear Factor and a whole bunch of other stuff. He's got a really good podcast that he sometimes has really interesting guests on there. Just recently, Ancient Aliens on there, and a couple of weeks ago he had a guy called I think the guy's name was West, and he's like a kind of an Egyptologist, and like he was discussing the ancient Egypt and the pyramids and the pharaohs and stuff, and he was talking about it for a good couple of hours, and it was really, really fascinating stuff. So if people want to check out Joe there that, you know, he barely talks about MMA. He has these incredible guests on there that are, you know, that people talk about conspiracies, people talk about, you know, ancient aliens. There's people talking about health and new age stuff. You know, it's one of the best podcasts going.
Yeah, that is Joe Rogan, and he's a big stoner too, so that's kind of why he likes that stuff, I think. But he's good.
Yeah,
I mean, you're right.
He's an intelligent guy. He has his guests, and he's not just kind of agreeing with them. He's seen the stuff himself. He admits that he sits down for hours and hours and just watches, you know, on National Geographic and gets DVDs. He watches all this stuff. He puts things on when he's going to UFC on these overseas trips and stuff. He's reading things on the plane and watching stuff. You know, he's a knowledgeable guy. It's very interesting to listen to.
Yeah, people should check that out for sure. And but it'd be interesting to see if someone should try to get Larry to get on that show, because they could have an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I think I'll tweet that to Joe Rogan.
Yeah, tweet him a link to the interview, but it's up probably like, you know, I think it's on the pay site, so you probably have to just give him the file. But yeah, but now some of the predictions that Larry Zbyszko made were interesting. He said that, well, first of all, he kept remarking that the bankers are robbing us blind, and I certainly do believe that. I mean, that's kind of evidence in the last 2 years.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. But he's also saying that Europe is going to have an economic collapse, and that
they are at the moment, yeah.
And America will follow, and that there's going to be a run on the banks, and that if your money's not under your mattress, then it's not your money. So my question is, if everything breaks down, what good is money going to be? I mean, you know, it's like, would that really buy you anything, you know?
Yeah, that's the point. People have been saying about that. You know, if you know the shit really hits a fan, you know, it's all right having money kind of hidden in a cookie jar or hidden under your mattress, but you know what you're going to be able to do with that money is you might as well just kind of have like a bunch of gold or a bunch of silver, and you know, just a load of resources. You know, just have like, you know, this, you know, food and water and things that have got like a long shelf life and stuff on them, if it ever goes to that, which God forbid it would ever happen to that. But you know, you can understand why, you know, people are panicking when you have these bank collapses and these economies are in trouble. I don't think it's as negative as what Zbyszko is saying. I think he was predicting it's going to happen this year, so I don't know about that. Half the year's gone already, so I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, you never know.
Yeah.
But he was like, 2012 is just a number.
Yeah, I don't think like the mine thing is like that would just be proved to be like a bunch of shit. And
so you don't believe the 2012 deal?
No. I was listening to the Ancient Aliens guy, and he was saying like the calendar's wrong. He said like it's about 100 years out, so it's not like December the 21st, 2012 that stuff's going to change or whatever it is. He reckons it's about 100 years out, so I think the whole mind thing is like pretty flawed, really.
Huh.
So. Well,
I guess we'll see soon enough, but just some interesting things that... Now, he also was saying that you know, there is no such thing as death, that like we're just these light beings that, you know, we go into another realm and stuff like that. And it's interesting that he said that, because he also criticized religion, and he kept saying how all religions was a big scam to make you, you know, to keep you obedient. But yet then he would mention God. So I didn't understand what he was talking. If that's not a part of some kind of religious God, what is he talking about?
Yeah, it seemed like he was at cross purposes there, because he was kind of he was almost sort of talking like an atheist, and then on the other hand sort of saying, "Oh, God this, God that," and you know, I don't know what he was really kind of driving at there. I think he's probably kind of well, if you're an atheist and stuff, and you can always make the debate about, you know, religion is just a controlling force, keeping people in line, making, you know, saying all these 10 commandments and stuff to keep people in line. But
Well, what's your view, Mark Wren? Do you believe in the Christian religion? Do you believe in Jesus Christ?
I don't really want to get into that. I mean, I'm Christian, and you do Bible stuff, that sort of stuff, and I'd like to believe that there is something to all this, but I can understand when people start saying, I think it's just a bunch of fairy tales, and I don't think all this is going to happen. And if there was really a God, then why does he let all these natural disasters happen? All these deaths and wars and stuff go on, and I don't think that is it, but I'd probably say I'm a believer more than I'm not. So I've got my beliefs, and
Yeah, like when you're in danger, you're like, please God. But
yeah, that's it. Yeah, choose my
that's
mind.
like when you get religion. But no, I would say that I do believe that for the most part, religion is a brainwash, and it's meant to get you to be obedient to just the regular society. But there's also there's like parts of the religion that probably have some truth to them, and it's all just kind of a mix of stuff. But for the most part, I think religion has done a lot of harm as an organized thing. But I don't know if I really don't know if there's an afterlife or if there's some other place that you go to. I just think that it's kind of stupid to count on that, because it's like you don't know for sure, like, because you never really have gone to the other side. So the idea that you can just kind of count on it is, to me, a little bit gullible.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Some people are like, well, you either believe or you don't, and I think people have got a view of like, well, if you believe in God and and something happens after you die, then then obviously you've done okay, and there is an afterlife, there is a heaven or whatever. But if you don't, then and you die and nothing happens, well, you won't know in any case. It would just just pull in the plug. You won't know any different in any case. So it's probably better off to believe than kind of not believe, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, that's Pascal's wager. If you ever read his writing, he's like if I'm wrong, then it doesn't matter because I won't know it.
Yeah, exactly.
And if I'm right, then I'll be rewarded because if I'm right, then I'll be a good person and God will reward me. But if not, then I won't even know. So
yeah,
who cares?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like it's just kind of hedging your bets.
Yeah, it is hedging your bets. Yeah, it's fair enough. Most people just want to be good.
Right. But at the same time, there is I don't know. I feel like there is this dark force over us, and I think Larry Zbyszko is kind of talking about the Illuminati very, very kind of tangentially. It's like almost like a given that these entities exist, and that these big kind of controlling forces behind the scenes are really running everything. And there's this illusion now that the rich are running everything, but it looks like there's some families too that are even go supersede the super rich, because they just have more wealth because it's been accumulated over thousands of years, certain families. And I think we've talked about this, and that's essentially what people refer to when they talk about the Illuminati, basically a group of families that have just been around since, the Israeli times, the time of Jesus.
That's it. There's probably those kind of the royal families and religious leaders and political leaders that go back from biblical times, right through the middle Dark Ages, Middle Ages, to modern times. It's probably the same people that are kind of, in its carried through to modern day.
Yeah, and the idea that like this election that we're this like presidential election, like no, they're the ones that are going to select the winner, and like if Obama wins, it's going to be because they wanted him to win, and if Romney wins, it'll be because they wanted him to win, and there's really little that we're doing in terms of voting. It's kind of just BS. And it's probably true in your country too. I mean, it's just like there's just bigger interests that are deciding things, and you can't even see what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at any kind of country, you never get like the person that's always like elected is always like really well connected. You never get some guy who's just been like he was a street cleaner when he was 25, and then he just decided to like improve himself, and he's like becomes president or prime minister when he's like 50. It's like it never happens. Like all these, people are in privileged positions. I mean, like our Prime Minister Cameron, he's like, he's privileged upbringing. He was at like probably the top school in the country at Eton. And all the people in power, like the mayor of London, like went to Eton with him, and they're like mates. And it's like everyone just looks after themselves.
It's like a small group of very, very wealthy people kind of trading power and not really letting anyone else have it.
Yeah, especially in this country where we've got nobility, and we've got royal family, and we've got lords and dukes and duchesses and all that, and this stuff has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. That the people owning land, and the duke of this and the prince of this, and it still carries on, hundreds and hundreds of years from its original concept. It's just, it goes back to, just like at least 1,000 years, I would say.
Well, obviously, yeah. There's a lot of lines of family lines that go back ages and ages, especially in England, and the certain names that I'm sure pop up just on different roads and different street names and stuff like that. You just keep seeing the same name, and that kind of gives you an idea of what the names of the families you're dealing with, probably, right?
Yeah,
I mean, more over there than here. But yeah, it's definitely a crazy situation that we're living in, and it seems like, I mean, I just feel that there's something afoot. Like we're headed somewhere. I mean, I feel like we're kind of at a crossroads where we could really go into some serious, like fascist Nazi kind of extermination shit, or we could go to a new age where we're in tune with nature, and we're on the right track. So it's kind of, don't you feel like we're at a crossroads kind of?
Yeah, that's kind of what people have been saying about this Mayan thing. Saying it's going to be like the dawning of the new age, and everyone's going to have this kind of like, sort of enlightenment, and they're going to start seeing things for what they are, and everyone's going to kind of, and all this type of deal. But you just can't see it the way things are. It's hard to look past. Although you want to be positive, it's hard to look past like all the negative stuff that's happening, all the bad stuff that's happening in the world. You can't believe that just when this mind thing happened, like dancing around with flowers, and and everyone's going to be happy dappy and holding hands and singing. It's all this kind of hippie kind of mindset. You just can't see it happening. It'd be nice if it did.
Yeah, it looks like people are going the opposite direction and just getting more, mean and sociopathic.
More self-centered, more self-centered, more egotistical, more
narcissistic. Yeah,
exactly.
And it's good. It's getting crazy because it's like, and then the rich they're like just taking, openly saying, all right, you know what? Like in the chaos, I'm gonna just take over this shit. I'm just gonna. And it's just like they're really making a go for it, especially in the United States. Like it's just the amount of money being spent to try to influence politics here now is like unbelievable. And it's like they've come out of the woodwork, and they're no longer trying to hide. They're just like But what was interesting about what Larry Zbyszko was talking about was the whole idea of the warring factions and how we're kind of caught up in the middle of, certain Illuminati warring with other Illuminati. And, the Kennedy assassination strikes me as something of that nature where one family kind of struck at another family, The Kennedy family probably has its own roots in the Illuminati.
Yeah, I mean,
so
there are there is that argument to it where that there are these kind of, they do occasionally have these kind of power splits and disagreements in the whole like Illuminati, kind of power structure, and one of those is what many people have speculated is like this kind of vendetta that maybe like the Bushes are behind, like kind of all the demise of the Kennedys. There's a theory that that old man George might have been behind, like JFK's murder, and there's also like a theories out there about George Jr. Being behind JFK Jr.'s plane crash a few years ago.
Wow. So there's like an open war between the Bush family and or a secret war between the Bush family and the Kennedy family.
Yeah. I think Alex has been talking about that as well.
Who?
Alex Jones, like the talk show guy. There's actually if you look on YouTube, there's like I think it's called JFK2, which is sort of like nothing really. It's not a sequel, obviously, to the 90s film, but I think it's just called JFK2, and it's just kind of, I think it's done by Alex Jones and the Infowars, and it's just kind of lays out this kind of vendetta that like the Bushes are behind, the Kennedy, all the bad things that have been happening to the Kennedys over the years. So, and I don't know how it started, but they kind of lay it out from Prescott Bush and
Bush.
Joe Kennedy.
He was in Dallas. Bush Sr. And there definitely seems to be something going on there. Some kind of now the Bush family, they go all the way back to Prescott Bush, who during the time of Roosevelt actually was caught dealing with the Nazis, and in fact he was a strong advocate of siding with the Nazis instead of the Allies, because he thought that they had the way to go. So the Bush family are, I think, rooted in white supremacism. They kind of hide it now, and they've tried to make themselves more acceptable, but essentially they stand for that. And I think there's a certain strain of the Illuminati who are white supremacists and are trying to cleanse the earth of the brown, and it's gone underground. Obviously, it's not open like it was during the Third Reich. But
yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think this documentary was kind of saying that like originally like the Bushes were from like the East Coast. They're like the same as the Kennedys. Obviously, the Kennedys are from like Massachusetts, and I think originally like the Bushes were from that area as well. And now like when people think of the Bushes, they think they're like they're Texans and all this kind of stuff. But it's only really been George and George Jr.'s kind of generation that have been actually from Texans. Like if you look at the lineage, they're all like this kind of privileged upbringing from like the area that the Kennedys are from, like Massachusetts or from like Hamptons or something around like the East Coast. There's privileged upbringing. I think you look at the Skull and Bones thing of like Prescott Bush was in it, and like George Bush was in it, and then George Jr. was in it as well. There's that to it as well.
Ironically, so was John Kerry.
Yeah. I think there's some statistic where they look at the membership and you look at like there's like a good percentage of people end up making it big in government or like big kind of industry. They end up like running like Ford or something, and these big multinationals, they end up being like the director of the CIA or something, or the top guy in the FBI. It's like a very strong percentage of people that have been in Skull and Bones that have had these positions.
Yeah, and they've it seems like they they draw from like a very small pool when it comes to presidents. Like they have to have a certain bloodline, and it seems like there's an element of like masonry that they all share. They all seem to be like at least somewhat related to some secret society somewhere, and it's weird. I mean, I definitely think it was a shakeup to have Barack Obama elected, and certain elements of the Illuminati were not pleased with it because they weren't exactly sure if he was going to be a loyal soldier or not. I think he's turned out to be a pretty loyal soldier, but still they act like he's maybe somebody that's going to try to rock the system. And I think they're threatened by his popular appeal because it can be dangerous. Let's put it like that. Look what happened with Hitler's popular appeal. I'm not saying that Barack Obama is going to be Hitler, but like I think that whenever you get a guy who's really popular, but from the people, like I think they get nervous. The powers that be. Doesn't matter if he's like totally cooperating with them or not. And I think that's why they didn't like Kennedy, because he was so popular.
Yeah,
so
I don't think Obama's been. He hasn't rocked the boat, has he? He's kept a steady ship. He hasn't, he's learned.
Right, but the issue they have is that he could. Like that's kind of what happened with Kennedy. It was like he kind of realized, hey, wait a second, I'm the president. Everybody loves me. I can start rocking. It's like he can be a little rebellious, and that's what he did, and then he got killed. And they think that Obama might do that too, even though he hasn't. He's been pretty loyal. But they think, well, he could, and they don't want that. They want a guy they can control, like Romney, So I think there's some struggle going on there.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, what goes on in this election year. That, I think the polls are getting a little bit closer, aren't they, as to Obama and Romney.
Well, Obama is just such a superstar that they're so afraid of him. They're going to try to spend like $2 billion to beat him, but I think that I think what's happened is that Obama has the backing of like older money and older like Illuminati, and the nouveau Illuminati are the one that hate him, like these Koch brothers and these like guys who've made it rich in the last couple generations are like they hate him, but yet it seems like he's backed by that old family stuff. And because there's something about Barack Obama that, like, he's one of them, he's not just some guy that came out of nowhere. His mother.
He's carefully selected. I don't think there's any doubt that like Obama's going to get a second term. I think he's probably going to win by maybe 6.
A big margin.
Yeah, maybe by 6 or 7%.
Because he's the perfect front guy. He doesn't look. He looks like he's on the side of the people, but yet he pretty much does every single thing the globalists want him to do, including signing a new trade deal that they're actually trying to sign in secret before the election. That would basically that would subordinate the laws of every single country in the world to this conglomerate of business interests, and they would be able to like dictate that even if a duly passed law in your country, if it interfered with their profits in any way, they could actually command it to be struck down. And they're trying to work out this agreement right now as we speak and before the election, but people are starting to make noise about it. But the point is that Barack Obama's playing ball, and he's doing it in a way that makes him – he still looks like, the popular guy who wants to help the middle class. And that's the kind of front guy they need. They don't want a guy like Romney who clearly is an asshole and doesn't give a fuck about the poor. I mean, that would only cause revolution. People would revolt, I think, if Romney became president.
Yeah, I think it's a safe bet. Whatever, like they could have these. I'm sure they're going to have like televised debates and stuff like that building up to the election. And at the end of the day, I was just going to say to Romney, yeah, like whatever you want to say about me, at least I got Bin Laden, and that's going to be like his trump card.
Yeah. And it's funny, too, because that was a direct shot. I mean, I really think that Barack Obama must be working with the Kennedys. Like you're talking about this war between the Bushes and the Kennedys. It's like, it seems like Barack Obama was endorsed early by Ted Kennedy. Seems like he's kind of an extension of the Kennedy clan in many ways. And
Obama, I think he's now like really good friends with the Clintons as well.
Yeah, the Clintons too, and the Bin Ladens have been traditionally affiliated with the Bushes.
Yeah.
So him going after Bin Laden in a way was him going after the Bush family, because that's their conglomerate. I mean, they're friends with Bin Laden, and they just act like they're enemies. But let's face it, like Bin Laden has been dealing with the Bushes. That family is joined at the hip with the Bushes. So
exactly, they've been doing deals. They've been doing enough deals over the years. All stuff in the Middle East, and Halliburton, all these pipelines and all the infrastructure that's going on in the Middle East. It's all to do with deals with Bush and Bushes.
Yeah,
and
it's the relationships in Saudi Arabia, because the Bin Ladens are from Saudi Arabia, and they're a rich family, almost as rich as the House of Saud, which rules Saudi Arabia. They're like the second biggest family in Saudi Arabia, and they portray their son Bin Laden as this rogue black sheep, but he's a CIA asset.
Yeah, definitely has.
Yeah, and 9/11, of course, this is the big event, but it just seems like there's a. I'm just saying, it seemed like that Bin Laden thing, going after him, was like a clear message to the Bush family, like almost from the Kennedy family. I don't know. That's just my kind of idea. But lots of good stuff going on. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I was just gonna agree with you. It could be perceived as that, but before, from what you've said.
Wait, repeat that, because you were breaking up. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just agreeing with you from what you were saying about the whole,
the whole Bush thing and the thing. Like a little dig at them, saying, I got your boy,
Yeah, and what's interesting was Bush Senior during 9/11 was having lunch with Bin Laden's brother.
Yeah,
it's like. Or breakfast. He was having breakfast with them, and he's like, "Oh, your asshole brother's at it again, huh?" But of course, we know that 9/11. There's a lot more to it.
And like the days after that, when like there was supposed to be no flights, like they flew like out of the States.
They flew the whole Bin Laden family out of the States. That's correct.
So that's fucked up.
Indeed, it is. And then you had Ted Kennedy, who recently has been put out of business. So I guess he had brain cancer or something. But I mean,
there seems to be always something going on with the Kennedys. It was like Robert Kennedy Jr.'s wife killed herself.
Yeah,
about a month ago or 2 months ago. There's always some.
That was definitely a murder.
Yeah,
that was like
sounded a bit fishy. There's always some kind of scandal. It's just people keep looking at all the lineage of the Kennedys, and people are always kind of hoping. Kennedys, like from the outside looking in, the Kennedys seem like America's like royal family. We look at the Kennedys as this like amazing family in America, and they're just kind of beset with just tragedy and bad luck. You have like John Kennedy becoming the youngest president, and then being murdered before he could have a second term, and then you have his brother Robert looking like he was set to become president, and then getting murdered as well, and then having Ted Kennedy possibly getting a look in as well, and then like having some sort of scandal with his secretary.